Hey guys, it's Bridget with Reseed Company, and I'm in my garden, which looks pretty spectacular right now, despite the fact that I have an 11-month-old baby, and I really haven't done anything back here for, well, way more than 11 months. I've been busy, but yet still I have all these beautiful blooms in my garden, and I want to tell you how you can make that possible by growing my 4 favorite easy to reseed flowers, and what are the key tips and tricks you need to make that happen. Am I doing the like and subscribe at all? Okay. It felt natural right there. Now before I get into that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified anytime I put out content, and so I can help you have a better garden in zone 9 and 10. Okay, so if you look around, I've got lots of flowers going on, and you know, the critical eye, you know, as a gardener, I'm like, well, there's weeds, there's all kinds of work I have to do, but really, if I'm being gentle and gracious with myself, it looks pretty amazing, and that's because I've let things reseed season over season over season, and that's because we do seed production here, so I actually let things go to seed, collect the seed that goes in the seed packet. And also, just as a gardener, I try to let my flowers and my crops go to seed so that they can then potentially grow the next year. After about 5-6 years of doing this, there's been 4 flowers that I love that will pop up every year if you just let them go to seed once. I promise, 1 year you let them go to seed, they will come back year after year, and they're beautiful. Now here's a few caveats to that statement. Anytime you want flowers to naturally pop up, and this is especially true for those of you who are like wildflower enthusiasts and you want to have, you know, a beautiful garden of poppies and lupines and California natives popping up in your garden, they have to get established and they have to have some water source. Now for us, that's irrigation. You can see here we've got irrigation that actually just ran a little bit ago, and that irrigation runs throughout the whole entirety of the year. That means that there's always moisture in the ground, even in the hottest parts of the year, which also means it keeps the soil microbes alive. If the soil microbes are alive, they can continue to make the soil better. The better the soil, the easier the plants can grow. I do not think that it would be possible, especially with these types of flowers that I have growing here, to replicate this in a total, in an area without any irrigation. It just wouldn't happen. You would get some growth that happens in the fall during our wet months into the winter, and then as soon as the seasonal rains are done, kaput, nothing else would grow because there's no moisture in the ground, okay? So that is important, whether it's a large area that you're trying to have reseeding flowers or even just a few pots, keep in mind there needs to be irrigation so that there's water throughout the year. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the top 4 flowers that are so easy to grow in the garden, and if you let them reseed, you'll have them year after year after year. So, number 1, poppies. Now there's a lot of different varieties of poppies. There's the pan paver variety, there's the California native, there's breadseed poppy, which we actually carry 2 varieties, and that's actually the seeds that you put in bread to make like poppy seed bread, right? They all have very similar big, beautiful blooms, and what make this such a good reseeding flower is any of these seed heads are going to have millions and millions of tiny, tiny seeds. Let's see if I can find one. And if you leave them in the garden long enough so that they can fully mature and dry and then break, all of these seeds will spread throughout the garden. And it's, I mean, literally millions and millions and millions of them. And they will stay in the garden until the right conditions are available, and then they will resprout. Now I will say, when you are allowing seeds to fully mature in the garden, you do have to let the plant go a little past its like pretty stage, right? Like these poppies here, you might think, oh, well the heads are done, they've closed up, I should harvest these. They're not quite ready. You really want to get them to the point where they look not so great and they've fully matured. In fact, I've got a pile over there, I'll show you what that looks like. And so there is a period where the garden may not look as good. But if you do that once and you let this you know, incredible amount of seeds drop into the soil, then they will be available for a long period of time and start to grow year after year. Let's take a look and see what that plant looks like. So here I've got a pile that I was actually harvesting, and you can see that the plant itself looks almost dead. But the seeds in these pods are just now becoming ready. And let's see if I can break this open. you can actually see in this one, most of them have already fallen out. And there's so little. So a lot of times what we'll do is when we're harvesting in the garden, we'll actually harvest, and then I'll take this bunch and I'll go to other parts of the garden where I want this flower to pop up, and I'll just kind of shake it and try to spread the seed out so that year after year they'll start to pop up. So it does involve having some not so pretty flowers in the garden for a little bit, but it will well be worth the minor inconvenience of having some less than pretty flowers in your garden, because you'll get them popping up year after year. And that's the easiest type of gardening. You literally just turn on the irrigation, you let them pop up, and I will actually find them in areas of my garden that maybe I don't want them, and I'll just dig them up and transplant them to where I want them. So my whole garden has become a nursery where I get lots of free plants. So, quick trivia question, and I'll give the answer at the end of the video. Why are poppies called poppies? You'll find out. All right, number 2, a flower that can be very hard to start from seed in a tray, but yet somehow just magically pops up in the garden every single year is strawflower. I have a lot of customers who want to grow this really great cut flower, and the seed is very small and it can be somewhat difficult to start in a tray, and I'll give you the secret: you just don't cover the seed because they're so small. But if you get them growing, either buy the transplant and plant it out in the garden, or get the seed going and you transplant it out, let it go to seed, because it will pop up almost every single year here in zone 9 and 10. It's really just an incredible plant. Super tall, super beautiful. If you haven't grown it before, it's called strawflower because, can you hear that? The blooms feel like straw. And they last forever in a decoration, in an arrangement. They come in lots of different colors. It is interesting, I noticed in my garden that the one that pops up the most, the easiest, is actually this pink variety. But we've had some whites and some yellows as well. Once these go to seed, these seed heads will put out little like fluffy cottony material, which actually kind of carries the light seed. But it's really fun, especially with kids, to pull the seed heads out and throw them and see them float all over the garden. Very easy to grow. They don't take a lot of extra care. And as you can see, they've just popped up in the garden beautifully. Okay, number 3 is really a garden MVP, most valuable plant. Look at that, most valuable plant, calendula. I cannot say enough about this plant. It really is one of the easiest growing flowers in zone 9 and 10. It just grows basically like a weed. It has so many great medicinal properties. It's a great pollinator plant. It's a great plant for bringing in diversity. I just can't say enough about it. You can see we've got this row here, which is, you know, not looking fabulous because I'm letting it go to seed. And you can see what I mean by you kind of have to let your plant not be as pretty. I haven't gone through and deadheaded because I want the blooms to actually turn into seeds so that I have a bunch of them pop up year after year. It's really incredible. Once the seeds just are light and brittle and come right off, you can see these little curly cues here are the seeds. And one plant, just this one plant, is going to give me thousands and thousands of seeds, which I can spread around the garden. That's basically how I've gardened this year. And they will pop up when the conditions are right. An interesting thing that I have been trying to point out lately is that a lot of times the plants will tell you what the right season is. I know that we are heading out of late winter and going into spring when my calendulas are really blooming nice and big and beautiful. They know the right soil conditions, the right air temperature, everything, and they will tell you what season it is. They pop up when they're ready, when the conditions are right, and you don't even have to do anything. It's really incredible. And I've actually taken this calendula plant because there was a lot of babies right here, as you can imagine, and I just dug them up and I transplanted them throughout the garden in different areas that I want them. But again, calendula is super easy to grow and it comes in tons of different colors, not just this classic orange. There's yellows, there's all kinds of new colors that are coming out. And as long as you let them seed in the garden, you will get them year after year after year in zone 9 and 10. Okay, number 4 of the 4 easiest plants to get to reseed and regrow in your garden in zone 9 and 10 is red sage. So This is a little bit off the beaten path, but the reason why I'm including it is because I cannot believe how prolific this plant is and how I find it everywhere in the garden. We literally started with like 2 or 3 plants. Not a big deal. I started them from seed. They're very easy to start. We planted them throughout the garden. Now I find them in the sidewalks. I find them in the driveway. I find them all over in pots. It's really incredible, and they're very easy to transplant or move. So if you find a red sage in an area that you don't like, dig it up, move it to a different part of the garden. It is a favorite of our hummingbirds. I believe it's because of the shape of the flower. It's very easy to grow year-round in zone 10 specifically. All you have to do is chop it back when it starts to become unruly. It looks great in arrangements. There's so many great benefits to this particular sage. Now, I will say that this red sage is a lot easier to grow and will reseed a lot more than blue sages. So we carry both varieties. But if you're looking for something that's fairly drought tolerant, grows really easily, and will reseed throughout the garden, red sage is it. Okay, so that was my top 4 easiest flowers to let reseed in, we'll call it the lazy gardener's garden, right? Now, to answer that quiz question, why do we call poppies poppy? Well, we call them poppies because these seed pods can actually pop open and disperse and spread their seeds throughout nature, which makes them called poppies, obviously. As I mentioned, inside of here are hundreds of thousands of millions of seeds, and you'll see there's none in there because they've already been dispersed. It's already popped, it's already gone. Now, poppies, like California natives with a long pod, you can actually hear those pop. And what's really incredible is if you let a patch of California poppies go to seed, and you go out there and you lay out there very quietly, you'll hear pop, pop, pop. Or when the seed is very brittle, you can just barely hit it with your hand and you'll see it goes pop, and it disperses its seed. I mean, you know, when you have so much time to just lay around in your garden for a few hours waiting for a seed pod to open, it is amazing. I highly recommend you give it a try.